Welcome to Find Me in a Book. This podcast is meant to be like you're talking to your best friend about romance books. I share my passion with those who love to read, those that don't have time to read, or those that don't like to read but still want to know and be involved with book conversations. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. Elaine is a writer, parent, young widow, and certified Pilates instructor. Her written work from her blog Reconstructing a Year in Hope has appeared on Refinery 29, Well and Good, Insider, among others. She has now turned to fiction with her debut novel, The Midnight Garden, which will be released on November 7th. Hi, Elaine. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited that you're here.
So excited to be here.
So congratulations on your debut novel, The Midnight Garden. How does it feel? Like it's being released November 7th. So how does it feel? It's like, what, a week away?
A week and a day.
Oh my gosh.
I did wake up this morning and think, oh my God, in a week from today, that'll be it. And then it's out in the world.
That's so exciting.
It feels surreal though. It feels like it's been a long road of dreaming about this and hoping to get here, and it's finally here, and it's like, oh my gosh, how did that happen?
I love that, and it's incredible. I loved it. I devoured it honestly within a night. Like I just was like to my husband, I was like, no, don't bother me. Like I have to finish this book because it was just so like captivating, and the characters were so good. And what I really liked is like, usually there's just like one character that's kind of going through like this process of finding themselves, but there were multiple characters, and I loved that. It like was different, and I just like, you were on a journey with each one of them, and you just like hope the best for them, and it was just so good. So I'm so excited for the world to have this book because it was so good. I loved it so much.
Thank you so much for saying that. Thank you. That makes me so happy to hear.
It was so good. Yes, you should definitely be proud because it's a great debut novel. I loved it.
Thank you.
So I'm sure our listeners are wanting to know more about you. Since this is like your first book, we don't know a lot about you yet, so I'm excited to dig in. So I want to know how you got into writing in general.
I always wanted to be a writer. Either a writer or an actress is...
Oh, really? Okay.
But then I'm very introverted, very shy, so the acting career died pretty quickly. But I've always been a reader. Like when we were little, my mom took me, my brother and sister to the library, and I would just spend hours walking through the racks, picking out books, and I would devour books. So it just sort of... I was like, I want to do this.
From a young age.
From a very young age. I would even steal at some point. I remember I started stealing her books, the adult books, when I was like 11.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yes, that is so relatable. Yeah. Because that's what I did too. My mom had like the Christian romance novels. And so I was like, okay, I want to see what this is about. Mm-hmm. So I love that. I love how when you're young, you're just like, I want to read this. I want to do this.
Yeah. I was actually stealing Daniel Steele, so I understand the stealing the romance.
Oh. I love it. Okay, so you've always kind of wanted to be in writing. Do you remember like the first story that you ever wrote?
I don't remember the first story that I wrote, but I remember in 5th grade, we had DARE, which I think has changed now for kids.
Yes.
But in 5th grade, the essay that I wrote for DARE won the competition. And I remember like, this is what I'm meant to do.
I love that from the little DARE program.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, but then as an adult, I, went into different careers. And then when I wanted to get back into writing, after I had my first kid, my daughter, I submitted a short story to Writer's Digest, and that won an honorable mention award. So I was like, okay.
Wow.
I feel like this
is
love that. What I want to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember what your first story was about, like in DARE? Was it just about the program?
It was just about the program. I remember I also helped write the play, and it was about an angel and a demon for the student, and then there was an angel and and a demon on his shoulder.
I love that. That's so fun. Okay, so to dive deeper into that, did you always know you wanted to be a romance author?
It's funny, absolutely not. The very
Really?
first,
Okay.
the first novel that I wrote was paranormal romance. So there was always been that romance element to it, but
Okay.
I was very into Twilight and then Hunger Games and then Divergent. So I really wanted to write a YA paranormal romance or a dystopian romance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was just kind of a learning curve or if I just didn't quite connect with that genre, but that didn't take me anywhere.
Okay, so are you wanting to do that? Like, are you wanting to kind of venture into that like later on?
I don't think so. I really enjoy reading it, but I really loved that little bit of magic that I could sprinkle in. I feel like that is the sweet spot for me.
Yes, definitely. And yes, we're going to definitely talk about that little magic in this novel because I thought it was such a good like little twist and like element. So good. Okay, so I want to know, when did you know that you wanted to write this book?
This book came, it was actually a long time in the making. I started writing it, I think February 2021. And the way that it started, the initial kernel of the idea was I wanted to write a widow story, but not a widow story. Like I wanted it to be more realistic because I don't know why, but for whatever reason, the universe keeps sending me books with widows in them. And so often I'm just rolling my eyes like, no, that's not how it feels for a young widow. That's not it.
Right.
So it started with Hope's story, and then it kind of just went from there.
Okay. How long did it take to write it?
About a year, and the very first version looks so different from the current one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, can you share something that was in the book that's not anymore?
Oh, I have to even think.
We can always come back to
that we
too.
might have to come back to that because I don't even remember 100% what got cut out, but it changed a lot.
Okay, so I want to know, so it sounds like you read fantasy, like that's kind of where you like to read. You probably like to read a lot of different types of books, but do you have a favorite trope, like within the romance genre?
I love love triangles.
Really?
And I know people hate them, but I love a good love triangle. Like if it's well done and I don't know.
Right.
I think they're very hard to do well.
Yes. Kind of expanding on that. Do you like reverse harems? Because that's kind of like why choose? Like you can have both love interests.
Oh, funny. I actually don't know that I've come across something like that.
Really? It's not my cup of tea, but I like to say like we don't yuck people's yums, and some people like reverse harems, but I've definitely tried, and I really am just like, can you just choose, please? Can you just choose one person? Like you don't need all 7.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I like when it's like 2, but it's a tough choice that
Yes, and then it surprises you at the end where you're like, oh. I read one where it was like a love triangle, and so you're rooting for this guy, and the other guy is like evil. But then at the very end, he kind of like redeems himself, and she falls in love with like the evil guy.
Oh, I love that.
Where it's like unsuspecting.
Yep. Oh, those are my favorite.
Those ones are so good. Yes, I'll have to send you recommendations.
Yes,
then.
I would love that.
Okay, so within this book, I kind of got a sense of like a love after loss trope within it. Is there another trope that you like to reach for?
I love enemies to lovers, forbidden love, like a good Romeo and Juliet kind of vibe. I love that.
Okay, yes, it's kind of like the Twilight, like you were saying, that little era. I feel like that started us all on that like forbidden romance, kind of like enemies to lovers almost. But like I feel like that really started us all down that path where we're like, well, this is what we love.
Even Divergent, dystopian, but it's even that had a little bit of enemies to lovers, a little bit of that they're not supposed to be together.
I love it. Yes, I completely agree. So I kind of want to know or shift a little bit to like your process with writing and everything. Do you read other books while you write? Do you kind of like immerse yourself in another world, or do you kind of keep it separate?
I love this question.
What's your process?
I love this question. It kind of depends where I am in the writing process. If I'm sort of light in the writing process. Like I'm not quite immersed in my own world. I can read other books. But for example, I'm working on my next book, and it just like sort of clicked the plot. And I feel like now I can't read or listen to another book until I get this on paper. Because
you don't want any like other outside influences, or like you have it kind of like in your head that you want to stick to that.
And you know, it's another like women's fiction, a lighter book. If I start reading, for example, like a domestic thriller, all of a sudden I'm going to have a guy with a gun come in, and that, because I just know the way. I'm like, this is not the right genre. What am I doing?
Right. That's completely understandable. Okay, so to go along with that, we kind of talked about like the books that you reach for, kind of more the fantasy. Do you always reach for fantasy, or do you really like a mixture?
I really like a mixture. I love women's fiction. I love domestic thrillers, domestic suspense. Anything by Alice Hoffman, Taylor Jenkins Reid, Emily Henry. All of those.
Devouring.
I love them.
Okay.
Yeah.
To go with that, do you have a favorite author?
My favorite is probably Alice Hoffman. I think she just has such a beautiful writing style.
I've never read anything from her.
Oh, you would enjoy it.
I'll have to. Okay.
Yeah, she wrote Practical Magic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then it's actually, it's a whole series. So there's a prequel, I think, and there's books that come after. It's very good.
Okay, I'm writing it down because I want to read that. Okay, I love that. And then you mentioned Emily Henry. Her books are so good.
Emily Henry, yep. Her the way that she does dialogue is incredible.
Yes.
That kind of snappy dialogue is so well done.
I completely agree. Okay, so you have 2 young kids at home. So how do you find time to write?
Well, they're not so young. They're almost 12 and 13, but usually, but I wake up. Now I wake up before they do, which it's easier now that they're a little bit older. I get my coffee and I write until they wake up, or until I have to wake them up for school. So around 5 a.m. is when I wake up.
Wow.
And then now I spend a lot of time writing in my car, like waiting to pick them up from school, waiting to drive them to the next activity, waiting to pick them up from that activity. Yeah, so it's a lot in my car.
Hey, that's okay. As long as you have like a good setup and you're just, typing away, like I love it. You got to find time where you can.
Yeah.
Going with that, do you have kind of like deadlines for yourself where you're like, okay, I want to get like this part of the story done on this date, or like kind of what's been your process with this new book?
I have in my head, I always like to get 1,000 words done a day. Lately, between just 2 kids and their schedules and the holidays, and I teach Pilates, so it's just between everything, I've given myself a lot of grace. On some days it's just not going to happen, but my goal is 1,000 words a day. Yeah. So
now I want to kind of go more into The Midnight Garden. And talk more into this book, which I really did love. So to give the listeners a little synopsis, or a little couple snippets of this. So The Midnight Garden is a hopeful and heartfelt story about a young widow who uncovers the magic of everyday life and the power of second chances. I want to know just overall, like, your inspiration behind The Midnight Garden.
It was, a little bit drawn from my own life. I kind of kept finding... not to get too woo-woo into it. I'll give the story. So, my husband passed away, and I'm always looking for signs from him. So a little bit that was the inspiration of that he's still with me, that he's still, cheering us along. So I read this book about how to ask for a sign. And in the book, it said to do this whole kind of like meditation ritual. I did that. The book said, ask for a sign that's not something you'll see all the time. So I said, okay, my sign is going to be a lion. A couple months pass. I'm submitting a different book. I'm querying a different book. I get a response back from an agent. Eventually, it's a yes. And her last name is Lionetti. And I was like,
oh my.
There is no way that this.
Wow.
So it was little things like that. And sometimes, I write about this a lot on my blog, so it's longer to go into. But, a lot of people say rainbows are their signs. But anytime when things are really tough, there always will be a rainbow somewhere. So a little bit of it was inspired of, like, there is something, it does feel like something magical or something connected. So I kind of wanted to write that into a story.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh,
like, I love that. I feel like everyone needs a little sign from someone higher above, like just,
Yeah.
you're not alone. And I love that. Just like the little things like that. With that and kind of like the little magic that we've kind of talked about, I do want to know about like Hope and Will and all that, but I want to know about Maeve. Maeve?
Maeve.
Is that how you say her name?
In my head, it's Maeve.
I want to know, like, what was the inspiration behind her? It sounds like you've read books about like the little signs. So how did she come about?
She kind of is just a mix of all these psychics that I was seeing in mediums, and the author of this book that I read, and then just a lot of conversations of how to make her feel different. But a lot of it was just coming from this person who's just living life on her own terms and who has this connection to something. And
I kind of get a sense of she's someone that you maybe wish that you had. Just like you wanted this person to be there to like help you along.
Absolutely. And part of it is like, oh, I could, one day I could be her living, for other people. I love it. For other people.
Yes, definitely go for that because I feel like that's definitely needed. The book is based in a small town of, is it Kingset?
Kingset, yeah.
In Rhode Island. Is this a real town?
No, totally made up.
Okay, I Googled it and I was like, I don't think this is a real town. Okay, so what are you kind of like basing the town on, or like what were you imagining while writing it?
It's a mix of my small town and what I picture living in a New England small town would be. But I pulled in a lot of what I know about living in my town into it. And then I got a chance to visit Rhode Island, which was fun to take a work road trip to Rhode Island.
Was it so beautiful?
It was gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. I bet it's so pretty right now too.
Yeah, I went when it was summertime, so it was then the water was
so green.
Yeah, everything was gorgeous.
And then I wrote down with like a small town, you wanted kind of like an experience of the village, like community, which I kind of grew up in like a small town in Idaho. And so, but it was too big to really know like people's business, I guess you could say. But like you do read those stories where it's just like a really small town and everyone's in everyone's business, but also there is that sense of community where everyone looks out for everyone and it's just like a big family. And so I can see that just like the appeal for this story where she just has the whole town kind of on her side, but there's a couple other characters that are like a little bit nosy that they're like, what's going on? But overall, throughout this book, I just sensed that family aspect where this town, like they might like want to like take Maeve out of the whole situation, but they're just trying to protect each other. Like they just want to protect their little family. And she and Hope has gone through like a lot of grief, and a lot of the characters went through a lot of grief and are kind of finding themselves again. And so that's what I really liked at the very end, where it just kind of like, they're just all there as a family. And like, of course there's the little characters where you're like, what are you doing? Like, get your nose out of there. But like, overall, I loved it. I loved the community. I loved how they all flowed together. And there was, that little moment where you're like, what's happening? Like, don't kick Maeve out. And yeah, but overall, I loved the feeling. I loved just how it flowed, and the characters were so like thought out. And I did. It was very refreshing that it wasn't just like that one character going through the grief, that it was like different stages of grief for each person and different like elements with what they were going through and like the path that they were going on and the decisions that they were trying to decide. And it was just overall, I loved it.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, and some of that was inspired by, just talking to other people who were also, who lost their other widows and other just people and seeing how it looks so different for everyone.
I love that. Yeah. I love that aspect that you brought into that. Which character did you enjoy writing about the most?
I really loved Hope. She was the beginning of the story. I didn't want to make her me, so I gave her a lot more spunk than I have. I didn't want her to have kids. But I really loved giving her a voice and trying to help her find where she was going, to figure out like how she was stuck and where she needed to go next.
I was reading like your blog. So your blog is called Reconstructing a Year in Hope. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that kind of where you got Hope's name as well?
100%. So hope has been kind of the theme of the blog was how much hope that we had when my husband was fighting brain cancer, and then paired with finding hope in my first year as a young widow. And then, so yes, absolutely, I threaded that theme through, but I did not connect that I used hope in the blog and the book until just now. The theme I realized, but not the name.
Who was your most difficult character to write?
I think it was actually Maeve was the toughest.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because I wanted her to straddle this line of, I wanted readers to not be sure if she really had the best interests of hope or if she was kind of looking out for herself. And I found it challenging to walk that without kind of being too obvious in one way or another. But I mean, it was fun. It was super fun to write her, but it was a challenge to get her quite right.
No, you definitely hit it on the head, because those are the feelings that I felt, where I was like, okay, am I on her side or am I not?
Yay,
like, do I like her or do I not like her?
Oh, that's exactly what I was hoping for.
Good. Yes. No, you did it really well.
Yay, thank you.
So with this book, it is a dual point of view. Did you find that difficult at all, like writing Will's point of view?
I like actually dual point of views, because I think getting that break, getting to see how the other characters interpreting the same situation, I always think is so interesting. So it was very fun to try to step into Will's shoes for a little bit and see what he was going through and understand how he felt about things.
I have a hard time sometimes with like dual point of view, because sometimes like they make the guy just not likable. But within this, like, I loved Will. He was so like, he was sensitive, but not enough to be like oversensitive. Like, he was genuine. He like genuinely cared about Hope and the process that she was going through, and like patient. And when he like basically called out Maeve, I was like, what are you doing? Like, she told you not to. Like, I'm telling you, this book like really gave me emotions where I was like, what is he doing?
I'm so happy to hear that.
But yes, I loved Will. I loved everything about him and his kind of relationship with his mom and then his brother, and then wanting to go back to LA but wanting to stay, and just his overall like fight to really figure out what he wants to do. Yeah. And I thought that was incredible.
Oh, yay. Yeah, he definitely, he was the opposite side, like fully shut down. Hope understood her feelings, and she's crying in the bathroom in the first scene, or trying not to cry in the bathroom, and he's like, all right, this is what I'm doing, and here we are, and this is what needs to happen. So it was fun to compare and contrast them.
Okay, so you've kind of hinted at it a little bit, but I want to know if there's another book in the works. It kind of sounds like there is.
Yes, I'm writing it now, so we'll see if anything comes of it. Sometimes, you write a book and you're like, all right, this needs to be shelved, but I hope not, because I'm excited about it.
Within the same world as Midnight Garden, or is it kind of a different, like, standoff?
So I am playing around with the idea. It started off as a completely different world, but I'm getting a lot of feedback that people love Maeve so much that I think it might be fun just to have her do a cameo, even though it's a different world. So we'll see if I can do that in a way that feels right for this book. But I think it might be fun to kind of thread her through.
Would you ever do her origin story, like where she came from?
Based on some of the feedback that I'm hearing about people's response to Maeve, I actually might. It might be fun to do.
I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
I think that would be so fun. I would love it if you did that.
Yeah, no, that it seems like a fun idea. I hadn't thought about it until it kind of kept popping up.
So are you able to share a little bit about your new book at all? Like maybe the plot, or like what you kind of want to happen, or is it just kind of as you go?
Yeah, it's still a little bit too new. It'll be, assuming it doesn't change a ton, but it'll be a sister story, but I hope to incorporate it again.
Okay.
Similar themes, but in a different way. I very much like working through the grief and hope and forgiveness, but in this other version of it.
I love that.
We'll
so
see.
You said kind of like a sister book. Is that meaning like to go along with this, or the characters will be like sisters?
The characters will be sisters, so it'll be two sisters who approach the same problem in very different ways.
I love that. I have a sister, and we both read romance books, and so that's exciting because I love when people add in sisters, where I'm like, oh, that's relatable.
Yay! Yes.
And I love that. That's on the way, and you have this debut novel coming out on the 7th. And what's next? Like, do you have any like upcoming events happening, or like just waiting for the premiere, or what's happening next?
I think sort of just waiting for the book to launch, and then, you know. Are
you going to have a party or anything?
Yes.
Or like go out with friends? Or
yes, I think I have to figure out the 100% of the details and quickly, but yeah, I'll have like a launch party probably at the studio where I teach, because that mixes my two favorite things, books and Pilates.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean, mostly it's
so fun.
The kids who are super excited to do something. My son, who's going to be 12, I don't know where he thinks he's getting the money from it, but he wants to throw a party with a DJ and strobe lights. I think he has some NBA celebrities he'd like to invite. So I'm like, sure, dream big.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, so with let's see. So I have your social media on here. We have your website at www.elaineroth.com, and then your Instagram is the Elaine Roth.
Yes.
Do you have any other social media that you wanted to plug?
That's all I have. Social media is not my strength.
That's okay. No, I feel like I kind of stick on Instagram anyway, so I feel like that one's the most important.
I mean, I agree, because it's the one I understand the best, so.
Same. Oh, perfect. Well, is there anything that you wanted to talk about with the novel?
Just very grateful that people are reading it and responding to it. I've been writing I started my very first novel I wrote almost more than 10 years ago. And I've been writing, querying, getting rejected, writing a new one, taking now a writing class. And so I've been really working toward this for a long time.
Yeah.
So it just feels
now
really...
it's here.
Yeah, now it's here, and, it's a crazy thing to put it out into the world, and now it's out of my hands. So it feels very surreal, and I'm just really grateful for that you read it, and then you responded to it and liked it. So
yes, no, it's incredible. You should definitely be very proud. It's a very solid book.
Yay, thank you.
Just loved it. So I'm excited for everything that you're doing for your next books. Do you think, you said that you've shelved a couple books, do you think that you would ever like revisit them again? No?
No.
That's a very, oh no.
They're going to stay in a dark, dark corner somewhere.
I love it. That's funny.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. Well, they're just for your experience.
They were just part of the learning process. They needed to happen.
I love that. Well, I'm so excited for you. I'm excited for this book to come out. Again, it's on November 7th that this is released, and it will be on Kindle. Is that correct? Yeah. And anywhere that people download books.
Kindle, Audible. You can buy it on Amazon.
Oh, Audible. Do you narrate this book?
I do not narrate it. No, but I got to pick.
Did you want to?
No, I didn't. My own voice on camera sounds terrible. But I got to pick the narrators, and that was so fun.
Okay. Yeah. Were you able to see what they look like, or did you just basically close your eyes and just listen to them?
Just on their voices, and I think they were perfect.
Oh, I'm excited. I'll have to pick that up.
Yeah. I think it'll be fun.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm so excited that you're my first interview.
Oh, yay. Exciting.
It was like a first for both.
Oh, that's so exciting.
I'm just so excited for everything that you're doing and the book that is coming out and the characters that everyone can see and just experience what they're going through. And I definitely think you did an amazing job. So
thank you so much.
I'm going to be following you throughout your whole journey, and I will be rooting for you on the sidelines.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for listening. This is Elaine Roth. And her debut novel is coming out November 7th, The Midnight Garden. So everyone should definitely pick it up. It's so exciting. It's so good. I highly recommend it. And we will talk to you guys later.